We need to learn some lessons. My brothers and sisters, thank God for the scriptures. But let's thank God also for the grace and the mercy of God. Let's wake up. Let's stop being gullible. Not everybody in church loves you. Everybody in church ought to love you, ought to love you, ought to have good wishes and desires for you, ought to. But in the reality of what we see on ground, in our churches, in our denominations, in the Christian fold, not everybody wishes you well. And the sooner you come to this realization, the better for you. Because if you walk in the ignorance, just like David did, you fall prey very easily to this kind of people. Are you still there? The same person who we took counsel together. We went to church together. We raised holy hands together. We served in Sunday school together. We put on the robes and sang in the choir together. We ate communion together. The same person who I thought was a brother in the Lord, I assumed because we're washed in the same blood, that person must love me in some good way. That person must be wishing me well. Oh, God, help us. Are you still with me? I cannot stand here this afternoon and begin to give you some instances, things that have happened to me, things that I have experienced as an individual. I tell people some of the greatest pains and agonies I have suffered in my life as a Christian, more so even as a minister. Those pains did not come from unbelievers who were outside. They came from people who we went to the temple together, the church together. They came from the men of the cloth. They came from clergymen with collars on their necks. They came from people who were supposed reverends and pastors and ministers of God. That devil is a liar. We used to tell each other, we believed for many years that God is not a respecter of persons. But I got to learn in a hard way that the devil is also not a respecter of persons. The devil will use whosoever who makes himself or herself available to be used. He will use a reverend, he will use a bishop, he will use a pastor, he will use an evangelist. Whosoever makes himself available will be used. But God is out to help us in this season. 30 years he had served King David. After this Bathsheba episode, Ahithophel